Hyperbole, right? No plucking out the eyes. Okay. I'd like to begin by focusing really on our Alleluia verse. We said, "Your word, O Lord, is truth. Consecrate us in the truth." We seek the truth, knowing that in that journey of seeking the truth, in the end, we will discover God, or Jesus himself, who is the way, the truth, and the life. So we commit ourselves to searching always for the truth. On the TV that I most times watch for the news, and this is not an advertisement, Channel 7, they have a feature in their news that they call 360. Are you aware of that? 360, meaning they present the story, and then they try to look at it from all sides. To seek the whole story, in other words, not just part of it or one side. We know that most stories have multiple angles to look at to try to understand what is the truth here. And that illustrates to me best Catholic moral thinking, or the formation of our conscience, which is our decision, our understanding of right and wrong. And I bring this up because this is the foundation then of our bishop's teaching to us as we approach the election time. They tell us and they teach us that all Catholics are obliged to form their conscience, okay? And then to follow their conscience. They have issued for us an article called Faithful Citizenship, okay? Being a faithful member of this country. And it includes then instructions, if you will, on the foundation of casting our vote, of deciding which candidate or which issue to support or not. In this article, and let me just on a side, and I'll emphasize this a lot, I think it's very important that you read what our bishops tell us. You can go to the U.S. Catholic Bishops Conference.org, usccb.org. You can find this. It's about 75 pages, but it is a wonderful read. A wonderful reminder to us all of what is the foundation of Catholic values and this treasure of the Catholic Church's social teachings. And when we're talking about elections, we're talking about social, right? Community, and how we enter into this. So their first lesson to us, they say, it is very complex, right? Every story, every issue, every candidate, there's lots of sides to look at. It's not easy to decide. It's not clear for all of us how to go. And one way we know this is Catholics, good Catholics, are sitting on both sides of the aisle in Congress, right? And they've searched their conscience and made decisions. But there's more than one. Our bishops go on to say Catholics have a serious lifelong obligation to form their consciences in accord with human reason and the teachings of the Church. So the two things there. One is we believe in the Church, and so we look to the Church for teaching and helping us to understand His teaching. But also we have our own life and our own thoughts and our own experiences, which are important and necessary for us to form our conscience. The basic principles, the dignity of the human person, the common good, what's called subsidiarity, which we could translate to say get involved personally. and then solidarity. We look to the good of all, not just me. They remind us that all life issues, and there are many, are connected. They say the erosion of respect for the life of any individual or group in society necessarily diminishes respect for all life. We cannot isolate one aspect only. Or they say it's also a serious mistake to accept only part of the church's teaching instead of all, as we together then combat poverty, hold up the dignity especially of those who are excluded from society, and the protection of all of God's creation. So what we're looking at here is conscience formation. And, in truth, it's how you have been taught since you grew up as a Catholic, if you were Catholic growing up. It's how you've been taught. And that is to take it all in, all the information you can, before you come to judgment. And we consult. We consult with the church, of course, in the many ways that the church teaches us and holds up values to us, its wealth of social teaching, but even in its laws, in its formal teaching, its creed, its liturgy, the church is always teaching us and helping us to form our consciences. We also look to our own experience of life. Your own, those you know, we look around at our experience, and this helps us to know right from wrong. We also look to advisors, teachers, helpers, people we think are wise. And here, our gospel and first reading are perfect to help remind us that we don't always find that wisdom only within our own group, right? There's lots of wisdom out there. And so we need to listen and search for all the wisdom we can. Because, again, it's complex. It is not easy to know right from wrong. So again, our bishops, we look to them for teaching. And here I would say, if you want to know what the bishops are teaching, read Faithful Citizenship. Read it yourself. Don't let me condense it for you. They add another thing we need to be aware of, and that is sin. And here, the beautiful example for us oftentimes in the Scriptures is the apostles. You remember last week they were arguing about which is most important, right? And today, you don't easily see it, but John tells Jesus, they're trying to drive out demons in your name. And we tried to stop them. Why? Because they do not follow us. What's this us? It's Jesus. That's the point. And so what sin says to us is that if we're just left without thinking a lot about it, without really fighting against it, we are going to be serving ourselves. We're going to be selfish and lazy. And we will cast our vote perhaps without really knowing and understanding the whole thing. We'll look at things black and white because it's easier. Or we will vote for ourselves, for my comfort, for my well-being. Look at that second reading from James today. He reminds us, when I get comfortable, I make bad decisions. And what he's really saying to us is when we cast our vote, when we decide on the issues or the candidates, don't look at me. Look at the world. And especially, look at the poor. Look at the rights of your brothers and sisters. Respect for women. safety for our children, care for those who are abused, for those who are poor, for those who are different, for those who have recently come to be with us. Here I think about, well, was it 25 years ago that John Paul came, and he coined this phrase, a culture of death, in describing us as Americans. And so what I'm thinking is, when we vote, it's not to try to win one candidate or one issue. It's to collectively create a culture of life where all people freely choose life and the respect of one another. Again, there is no Catholic candidate. There is no Catholic issue. Catholics by whole are kind of evenly divided. How very important for us to search with honesty and for the truth. Which leads us to the last point that our bishops make, and perhaps, well, certainly the most important. They encourage us in this time of year to fast and pray. Fast because it helps us not to be selfish. It helps us to be more aware, especially of those who are hungry and in need. It reminds us that government is there to serve the poor and the weak, and to pray. And to pray. If you summarize all of the Church's teaching of what's important, you could summarize it in that phrase, and what would Jesus do? Right? What would Jesus do? Who would he vote for? What would he support? If he were going into the ballot box, but it's not easy to know. It's complex. We need to consult with our teacher, and that's prayer. And that's prayer, and more prayer. To prayerfully consider it all, and then come to decision. But our bishops close by saying, we shall be judged by our response to the least among us.